I've always believed that routine was a kind of safety net. You do the same things at the same time, in the same way, and maybe the world can't shake you as hard. My name's Marcus. I'm 29, a marketing analyst who boards the 6:35 a.m. Red Line into the city every weekday from the suburbs. It's not glamorous. Coffee in hand, headphones and head down. It's just enough rhythm to keep things in place. But nothing about Ezra was routine. He was the kind of person you notice even when you don't want to. Too loud for a train that early. Too colorful. Too alive. He got on at Ashbury 3 stops after mine. And the first time I saw him, he was arguing with someone on the phone about whether oat milk was a scam or a revolution. He laughed easily, like the world wasn't pressing on his chest. Like he belonged to somewhere looser, brighter. He wore a red scarf, not for the weather. It was May, but like it meant something. And every day after that, I found myself looking up at 6:52 a.m., waiting to see if he'd get on. Inciting incident. The first time we actually spoke, it wasn't supposed to happen. I'd dropped my phone. It slipped from my hand and slid right toward his boots. He bent down, picked it up, and held it out like he was handing me something far more valuable than it was. "You look like you're about to pass out," he said, smiling. I blinked. "Didn't get much sleep." Then maybe you need to start your day with something stronger than spreadsheets." I stared at him. "How'd you know I work in spreadsheets?" He shrugged. "You've got that energy. Exhausted but detail-oriented." I don't know what made me laugh. Maybe it was how accurate it was. Maybe it was him. "Ezra," he said, offering his hand. "Marcus." After that, we didn't stop talking. Not every day. Not right away. But enough. Enough to start changing the rhythm. Rising action. It was subtle at first. Shared glances. Small conversations. I'd start saving a seat for him. Sometimes he brought coffee. Always too sweet. Always just right. He was a freelance illustrator, drew for magazines, children's books, political cartoons. "Basically," he said, "I get paid to turn my anxiety into something printable." He sketched on the train sometimes. I asked what he was drawing once, and he tilted the pad just enough for me to see. It was me. "Hope that's not weird," he said. "You've got good lines." I didn't know how to respond to that. I felt warm, like something in me had been pulled into the sunlight. One morning, I was running late. Got to the platform just as the train was about to leave. Doors open, then close. But I saw him, Ezra, holding them with his foot. He didn't say anything, just smiled and tilted his head like, "You're lucky I like you." That was the first time I let myself wonder, could this be something? But life, as it often does, complicates. He stopped showing up. One day 2, then 4. I told myself not to care. We weren't dating. We weren't anything, technically. But my mornings grew hollow. The seat next to me felt too big. I thought maybe I'd made something out of nothing. Misread things. Got carried away in the romance of it all. Then, after 10 days, he came back. He looked tired. Not like the usual up all night sketching tired. Deeper. "You okay?" I asked. He nodded, but it was the kind of nod that doesn't mean yes. "Family stuff," he said after a pause. Needed to step away. I should have texted. I didn't know if I could. I didn't push. I just nodded and we sat in silence. The kind that says, "You don't have to talk. I'll wait." And from that day forward, things felt different. He sat closer. Our shoulders brushed. One morning, his hand found mine on the seat between us and didn't move. I didn't let go. The moment Ezra's hand stayed in mine, the world on that train felt different. The usual hum of the city, the rattling wheels, even the early morning chatter faded into a background noise I barely noticed. It wasn't a grand gesture. No fireworks or declarations, just a quiet, steady presence. The kind of thing that roots you in a moment you never want to leave. We didn't talk much about it at first. Neither of us was ready to name whatever had started between us, but the way he looked at me, with a softness that felt like a secret, said enough. Our rides became something I couldn't imagine missing. I'd leave earlier just to catch his train, and sometimes we'd sit for longer after our stop, walking side by side in the early morning light, neither of us wanting to say goodbye, but with closeness came questions. Isra was like a city skyline at dusk. Beautiful, complex, but with shadows you didn't fully understand. He was open about some things. His art. His love for old jazz records. How he missed the summers of his childhood in New Orleans, where the air was thick with history and heat. But he never talked about family beyond a quick mention of complicated. When I asked once if he had siblings, he just smiled sadly and changed the subject. I understood the hesitation. My own past wasn't simple either. Years of trying to fit into boxes that never quite fit me. The son of a small town preacher who never quite accepted the man I was becoming. Still, we shared pieces carefully. One morning, the train lurched and Ezra's sketchbook slipped from his lap, pages fluttering open like a secret window. I caught a drawing of two men, hands intertwined, faces blurred but close, hopeful. "You draw us?" I asked quietly. He nodded. "Maybe. I don't know. It feels right. But I'm scared to really say it out loud." "Say what?" "That maybe this use is more than just two people who happen to share a commute." I reached for his hand again, squeezing it. "Men, too. But life has a way of complicating things when you least expect it." Ezra got a call one afternoon, right as we were getting off the train. His face changed. The easy warmth replaced by something tight, guarded. "It's family," he said, voice low. "I have to go back home for a bit." He didn't say more, and I didn't ask. The days stretched long without him. I missed the way his laughter broke through my mornings, the way his presence made the city seem a little less cold. I kept wondering if I'd misread it all. Was it just a fleeting spark in the endless hum of life? Then, a week later, Isra was back. But he wasn't the same. There was a distance in his eyes, like he was carrying something heavy he couldn't put down. I wanted to ask what was wrong, but the words got stuck in my throat. Instead, I took his hand again, the one constant that made sense, and we sat in silence as the train rocked forward. One evening, after a long day, Ezra invited me to a little cafe tucked away behind a row of bookstores downtown. The place was small, cozy, filled with old vinyl and the smell of dark roast. We found a corner table, and for the first time, Ezra let the walls come down a little. He told me about his family, about a father who didn't understand who he was, about a mother who tried but didn't know how to hold him, about the loneliness that had made him leave New Orleans in the first place. "I've been running," he said, eyes fixed on his coffee. "Running from the past, from expectations, from myself. I didn't try to fix it. There was nothing to fix." Instead, I told him about my own scars, the nights I stayed awake pretending everything was fine, the fear of never really being seen. That night, we didn't need words to fill the spaces between us. Back on the train the next morning, things felt different. More real, more fragile, but stronger for it. We talked more openly now, shared playlists, favorite books, silly childhood stories. Ezra started bringing me little sketches, just lines and shapes, but full of meaning. And one morning, as the city woke up around us, Ezra leaned over and whispered, "Do you want to come over after work? I want to show you something." I nodded before I even thought. That night was quiet, safe, and filled with small moments, the kind that build something lasting. We didn't rush, didn't push. Just two people learning what it means to be close. When I left his apartment, the city lights were bright but felt warmer somehow. But even as things grew between us, I couldn't shake the fear. What if the city, the routines, the expectations pulled us apart? What if the train, the place where we found each other, was just a temporary stop? Ezra felt it too. One day he turned to me and said, "I'm scared, Marcus. Scared this won't last. Scared that I'm too broken to be what you need." I took both his hands. "You're not broken, you're brave, and I'm here. I'm not going anywhere."
Ah,
In that moment, on a train full of strangers, rushing to their own destinations, we made an unspoken promise to try, to stay, to be real. Sometimes love doesn't come wrapped in certainty or perfection. Sometimes it's messy, fragile, and terrifying, but it's still worth it. Next time, we'll see how Marcus and Ezra face the challenges waiting beyond the train, the world outside that quiet space where their story began. The morning train rattled forward, but the easy rhythm of our routine felt different now. The space between Ezra and me was filled with something unspoken, a tension I couldn't ignore. He'd started taking longer to reply to my messages, and sometimes he looked distant, like his mind was miles away even while we sat side by side. One morning, I caught him staring out the window, jaw tight. I reached out, lightly touching his arm. "Hey," I said softly. He blinked, then smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. "I'm sorry," he said. "It's been a rough few days." I wanted to press to know what was wrong, but sometimes words can scare away what little light there is. So I nodded and said, "I'm here whenever you want to talk." That seemed to be enough for now, but the silence didn't last. A few days later, after the train pulled into the station, Ezra pulled me aside. His face was pale, hands trembling slightly. "There's something I need to tell you," he said, voice low. Something I should have said before. My heart quickened. "I'm still figuring things out about myself." He looked down, swallowing hard. "I've always been scared to be who I really am. Not just being gay, but all of it. The parts I don't show. Izara." I reached for his hand, steadying him. "I'm bisexual," he said quickly, as if getting the words out would make them less heavy. "And I know it doesn't change what we have, but I needed you to know." I squeezed his hand, the relief flooding through me. "Thank you for telling me. That means everything." We stood there, holding onto each other while the world rushed by. Opening up about his identity was just the beginning. Ezra's fears weren't just about himself. They were about us. About whether a relationship that began so quietly on a crowded, noisy train could survive the outside world. He told me about past experiences, rejection, judgment, and the invisible walls people build when they don't feel safe. I shared my own doubts too. Would his family accept me? Would the friends I hadn't told understand? Could we be more than secret moments and stolen afternoons? It wasn't easy to say out loud, but in those difficult conversations, something grew, a trust deeper than words. We started carving out spaces outside the train, dinners, weekend walks, visits to Ezra's small, cluttered art studio where sketches and canvases filled every corner. One rainy Saturday, Ezra showed me a painting he'd been working on. Two figures sitting side by side on a train, hands just barely touching. "It's us," he said quietly. "The moment before everything changes." I traced the lines with my finger. "It's beautiful," but he smiled. "Maybe that moment is just the beginning. But life rarely gives us neat beginnings." Just when I thought things were settling, the past came knocking. One evening, as I left Ezra's place, my phone buzzed. A message from my ex. Someone I hadn't heard from in years. They wanted to meet. Said there were things left unsaid. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to ignore it, but another part felt obligated to face it. I told Ezra, and instead of anger or jealousy, he surprised me with understanding. "Whatever you need to do, I'm here." That support meant everything. The meeting was awkward but necessary. Old feelings stirred, but I knew where my heart truly belonged. When I walked back to the train station that night, I found Ezra waiting for me. No words were needed, just the warmth of his hand in mine, the quiet promise that some journeys are worth every detour. As the days passed, we faced more questions from friends, family, and even ourselves. But every time the train rolled into the station and Ezra slid into the seat beside me, the chaos of the outside world felt manageable. We had found something rare, something real. The morning light spilled through the windows of the train as we sat together, the city waking around us, but our little world cocooned in silence. Ezra glanced at me, eyes reflecting a quiet certainty I hadn't dared to hope for before. "I've been thinking," he said softly. "About us? About what this means?" I turned toward him, heart beating faster. "I want us to stop hiding, to stop waiting for the right moment that might never come." His hand found mine, fingers entwining like they belonged there. "I want to live this, openly, honestly, without fear." Bah! That day marked a turning point. We began telling people. Friends first, the ones we trusted most. The reactions were a mix, some surprised, some supportive, some needing time to understand. But with every conversation, every honest word spoken, the weight of secrecy lifted. Ezra and I felt lighter, freer. Work was the next hurdle. I was nervous telling my colleagues, worried about old biases and whispered judgments. But the world had changed, even if pockets of fear lingered. Ezra stood by my side as I spoke openly for the first time. The relief of being seen, truly seen, was indescribable. Of course, challenges remained. Not everyone was ready to accept us. We faced sideways glances, awkward silences, and the occasional harsh word. But the love we'd built on that morning train was stronger than any fear. We started planning trips together, weekends away from the city where we could be ourselves without reservations. One crisp autumn afternoon, we found ourselves walking through a quiet park, the trees blazing with red and gold. Ezra stopped, pulling me close. "Marcus," he said, voice trembling just a little. I looked up at him, heart in my throat. "I want to ask you something." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small, worn box. "I know it's not a train ride or a fleeting moment, but I want to spend every journey after this one with you." Tears blurred my vision as I nodded. "Wes, our lives didn't suddenly become perfect. There were still hard days, misunderstandings, moments of doubt. But we faced them together with the same quiet courage that had brought us to each other in the first place." Sometimes I think back to that first morning, the quiet hum of the train, the accidental glance, the subtle shift that changed everything. It reminds me that love doesn't always announce itself with fireworks or grand gestures. Sometimes it's the small, almost invisible moments, the shared smile, the brush of a hand, the courage to be vulnerable, that change the course of a life. Closing thoughts, if you're listening, and you've ever felt that flutter of connection in an unexpected place, or wondered if love could really find you in the ordinary moments it can. Love finds us when we're willing to be seen, when we're brave enough to take the risk, and when we let go of the need to control the outcome. Marcus and Ezra's story started on a commute train, but it became a journey of growth, acceptance, and unwavering hope. So wherever your path takes you, remember the next connection might be just a stop away. And sometimes love is waiting quietly, patiently, to take a seat beside you.